الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. So one of the brothers asked if we could go over the verses that we've done so far very quickly, see how far we got, because today we'll inshallah finish that part that was the part of this surah, Surah Al-Insan, that we said we were going to cover these days. Surah Al-Insan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I'm going to go over the verses, give a summary of all of the verses we've had so far very quickly, inshallah. And then there's one last part that is left. There's one last part that is left, and then inshallah when we end that, we will talk about our second Imam and his birth and some of the interesting points surrounding him. Recite salawat, please. Surah Al-Insan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. There are a few points in this verse. Number one, that the question that this verse is starting with, it's a question. It's a rhetorical question. The answer is clear, but Allah is asking this question to emphasize something. Hasn't there been a time where man was nothing worth mentioning? The answer to that is yes, of course it is. And the next verse explains that. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. The next verse gives us the answer to this rhetorical question. Not only that, it gives us the three stages of man's creation. Number one, it says, yes, there was a time where man was nothing. When is that? When he was a mixed fluid, the sperm drop. And we talked about how the Quran here says mixed fluid, and all of the stuff that's in this fluid, that Islam and Shia, of course, the Shia fiqh, believes that it is najis even. This najis fluid is a mixed fluid. And we talked about why it's a mixture. How today's scientists have very easily explained to us what different things are found within this fluid. This fluid is supposed to become a human being. All the food that it needs, everything that it needs is in this sperm drop, which is a miracle, but at the end of the day, Allah says, this is nothing. This is not worth mentioning. Even this, which is a miracle, I don't even look at it as something big. Nutfatan amshaj, mixed fluid, number one. Stage number two, nabtali. All the twisting and turning, going up and down, and all that kind of stuff, which is pointing to the different stages of embryology that embryology covers, the development of the embryo and fetus. Nabtalihi. This one word is pointing to all those stages, which we talked about. How can it be that 1400 years ago, a person will come and speak about some of the details and intricate details of embryology, something that maybe goes back to 200-300 years at best. And I explained and I read off of what some of these scientists, non-Muslim scientists, have said, that this must be coming from somewhere above. When the way they say it, Muhammad says these words, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he must have heard it, he must have gotten it from God. It's interesting that this individual, this scientist that I explained, he says this very clearly, because embryology hadn't developed back then. The science of embryology. فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. The third stage, when Allah actually blows life into us and gives us cognition, gives us comprehension, gives us aql, we become a human being. We reach a point where we are different from the animals. What are we? We are sami', we are basir. We have aql. That's what separates us from them. Why? What is it? What's so special about this aql? What's supposed to happen that Allah gives us aql, gives us sami', makes us sami', makes us basir? The next verse says, إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلِ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. All of these things, all of these different stages were for this. We talked about the two different types of guidance. One type of guidance is something that has nothing to do with our free will, nothing to do with our choice. Animals also have it, plants also have it. Whether you like it or not, you will grow into an adult. Whether you like it or not, you will grow into a tree if you were a seed. And so on and so forth. This was called hidayah takwiniyah. Something that Allah gives no matter whether you like it or not. But then we had the other aspect that only man had. An aspect that has to do with the aql, that has to do with free will, that has to do with choice. We have a potential here as well. So Allah sees it upon Himself to give us guidance in this regard too. But since this potential has to do with free will, the guidance will also have to do with free will. So the verse says, "Inna hadaynahu as-sabil." We showed him this special guidance that's specific to him. Now he can take it, he can leave it. He can be grateful, shakiran, he can be ungrateful, kafura, and reach his perfection. إِنَّا أَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ سَلَاسِلَ وَأَغْلَالًا وَسَعِيرًا. We have prepared fire, shackles, for who? The kafirin, lil-kafirin. The previous verse says, إِمَّا كَفُورًا. Those who are ungrateful, they are kafur. The next verse says, the kafirin, apparently, these same ones who did not want to tread the path, we have prepared for them shackles, chains, fire, and these types of things. We explained that creation, the more complete it is, the more independence that creature or creation has. Yes? Till it reaches a point where man becomes totally independent of everything around him, and the only thing he's dependent on is Allah. Those who reach proper tawheed and true tawheed, they are like this. Yes? We said this. So if the path of God and that path of special guidance is a path of growth and independence, what is the opposite of it? Shackles, imprisonment. Yes, there will be fire and all of those things, but at the same time, we had a deeper look and an esoteric look at this verse, that just the fact that you are dependent on everything around you except the one person that you're supposed to be independent on, it's as if you are shackled. It's as if you are a prisoner. So there was two ways of looking at this verse. Till here, the verses spoke about the kuffar and all of them, but then it opens a new chapter, the surah, and it's as if this surah is, the point of this surah is to talk about these individuals that are to come. إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ يَشْرَبُونَ مِنْ كَأْسٍ كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا كَافُورًا. That the abrar, they are drinking from a cup, a container, that there's a mix of kafur in it. Coming from what? عَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا عِبَادُ اللَّهِ يُفَجِّرُونَهَا تَفْجِيرًا. The drink that's in this cup is coming from a spring, apparently, that the ibadullah drink from. And we spoke about how here, this spring is different than every other drink, if I remember correctly. And that the fact that these people can drink from it is because they are abds of Allah. True abds of Allah. Not a bande khuda. Remember we talked about this. Bande khuda means anybody can drink from it. We said theologically it's impossible for everyone to reach this point. For sure some will not make it to heaven. At least the ones that are enemies of Allah. They won't make it to heaven. So we can't say everyone's going to be drinking from this spring, but rather only ibadullah, those who were true abds and obedient servants of Allah, will be drinking from it. And it's not like the spring is something that is there and they come and drink from it. No, it says يُفَجِّرُونَهَا تَفْجِيرًا. They're the ones exploding it. They're the ones actually making these springs gush out. Wherever they will, it gushes out. And then we had the story of Imam Ali digging the well, if you remember, and how the well gushed out. And then we said, oh, the Imam there in that story, he was sweating and he had to go through a lot of hardship to dig this well. Is that what the verse is saying? That we have to dig our own springs? We said, no. On the Day of Judgment, in the hereafter, you don't have to do anything. All you do is will. All you do is say be and it is. And you don't even have to verbalize. You just have to will it, inshallah. Okay, one more point that was here that we put some time on was the fact that the verse 5 and verse 6 has verbs in it that are in the present tense. It says these ibadullah, right now they're drinking. Right now they are bursting and digging these springs out. Right now they are drinking from a container, from a cup that is filled with this drink. All of this. Present tense. We said that Allah explains here, He tells us that this is probably pointing to the barazakhi form of what they're doing in this life. What are they doing in this life? The next verses are telling us, yufuna bin nafs. They fulfill their vows. What else do they do? Yut'imuna ta'am. They feed the poor, the orphan, the needy, the prisoner. They fear a day that is to come that the ill of that day is widespread. They're doing all these things right now, and right now they are drinking from containers, they are drinking from springs. Wait a minute, that's in the Day of Judgment. This is here. Allah explains that it's probably because what they are doing right now, which is a good deed, right there and then, from another perspective and with another lens, it equals the drinking from heaven, from the springs of heaven. When I do a good act, right now I am drinking, although I'm not feeling it. And later on I'll get that reward. But right now something is happening somewhere else at the same time. If I could see, I would know what's going on. These verses are unveiling this and disclosing it to us. That when you do good actions, and same thing with bad actions, right now something is happening. Right now in the barzakh, in its barzakhi form, something is happening. يُوفُونَ بِالنَّذْرِ وَيَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا كَانَ شَرُّهُ مُسْتَطِيرًا. Talked about nadr and how we can't limit our religion and deen to nazr and these types of things, although we have these in Islam, although we have these in Islamic fiqh. But at the same time, our religion is not just these things. It's a lot more than these things. We have enough wajib things already for us. Why make even more things wajib, unless necessary? Talked about some of the rulings and all of that. And then we talked about how in these verses, when it's talking about ibadullah, it's talking about abrar, and the reason why they are in the heavens and in those and are taking pleasure in those blessings, it's because they are yufuna bin nadr. They fulfill their vows. I explained that not in the Quran we don't have nadr. Only one other place in the Quran we have nadr. So this apparently, if it was a criteria for people to reach those high levels, it would be repeated more and more in the Quran. How much do we have the term taqwa in the Quran? A lot. Because it plays a vital and major role in our salvation. If nadr and fulfilling vows was part of that, it would be repeated more and more. The conclusion that was drawn was what? The conclusion that was drawn was, apparently this is talking about a specific story in which these individuals actually fulfilled a vow that might have probably been very, very hard. This was the conclusion that was drawn with the explanations that were given then. It's talking about a specific story which we talked about. The Hasnain fell ill, and then Lady Fatima and Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, they made another, and when they fulfilled the nadr, stuff happened along with that. يَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا كَانَ شَرُّهُ مُسْتَطِيرًا. They fear a day that's its ill is widespread. They fearing that day. It was also explained that fearing that day is something they have, and it's manifesting in the way they act in their everyday lives. They have something here that others might not have. It's also manifesting in يُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Another manifestation of it is, not only do they fulfill their vows, but they give whatever they have, that bread that they had, they gave it in the way of Allah to the miskeen, to the poor person, the orphan, and the prisoner. And they only broke their fast with water. And they kept this a secret. If the Quran had not told us, we would have never known that this is something they did. And we concluded from this that the Ahlul Bayt have probably done a lot of other things for us, for the message and the cause that we don't know about, that only Allah knows about. This one was disclosed. What about the rest? إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We are only feeding you, O poor person, O orphan, O prisoner. We are only feeding you for one purpose. We want wajhullah, Allah's special attention, it was explained. That's what we want. We don't want thanks from you. We don't want compensation from you. Once again here it was said that this is their intention. It's not something they necessarily verbalized to those people when they were feeding them, when they were helping them. As a matter of fact, it might even hurt the feelings of that person. It's better not to say something like this in the face of a person when they come and ask you for help. You give and you turn away, but what you have in your heart, what you have in your intention is, I just want wajhullah. I don't need thanks, I don't need compensation. If they thank me, if they compensate, fine. But at the end of the day, what matters 100% for them is Allah and wajhullah, the face of Allah. Allah's special attention. When you want to give someone special attention, you turn to them and look at them with your face. Also, one thing that was said was that some people, they don't believe that these verses are about that special story that the Shia believes in, although I would say the majority of the Ahlul Sunnah also believe this, but there are some who don't believe this. We use the word asir to prove that these verses were actually revealed in Medina and not Mecca. If they had been revealed in Mecca, then yes, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they weren't born yet, but if they were revealed in Medina, then yes, they were born. The word asir here, prisoner. We talked about this. Prisoner meant prisoner of war. Before Medina, there were no wars between the Muslims and the kuffar for there to be prisoners of war. It was also explained how these prisoners during the Prophet's time, there was no prison. There were no prisons during the Prophet's time. So the Prophet, what did he do? He would tell the Muslims to take care of these prisoners. And sometimes the Muslims didn't have enough food, so the prisoners themselves would go and knock on doors, or they would go with their masters and knock on the doors asking for help. That's one thing they had in their mind. We're doing it only for the face of Allah. The next verse tells us another thing they had in mind, another intention. إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا. We fear a severe and frowning day. That's another reason why we're giving in the way of Allah. And it was explained how these ma'sumeen, why they fear such a day, although they probably know they're not going to go there. They fear it because they know how severe it is. They know how, just knowledge of how severe it is makes them shake, although they're not going to go. They will still do istighfar. They will still give in the way of Allah. فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ. So Allah protected them from the ill of that day. It was explained that that day will be full of ill, yes. But just because a day is hard and severe and harsh, doesn't mean that some will not be immune to it. And when you are immune to something, it won't be severe and harsh for you. I gave the example of weightlifting. Someone will bench 225 pounds. Just because it's easy for him or he can bench it doesn't mean that this weight is not heavy. It's still heavy. He's just able to bench it. The Day of Judgment is like this, and we had some hadiths on this too. That the mu'min will not feel the hardship, although hardship is surrounding it, and everything about it is hardship. But the mu'min, because of that shield that he has, he doesn't not only see it, he doesn't feel it or anything. The hadith said that he is so powerful, the mu'min, that he is extinguishing the fire of Jahannam. Is this not something interesting? That we feel that fire of hell is so powerful that there is no way out of it, and there's no way to be immune from it? No. These people, not only do they not have a shield, they're the ones extinguishing it. The fire tells them, go! You're extinguishing my blaze. فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ شَرَّ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ وَلَقَاهُمْ نَضْرَةً وَسُرُورًا. He protected them from that day because of this intention they had. Not just because of this one act that they did, but because this was a disposition in their hearts. Wajhullah, fear of Day of Judgment. This shows itself in the battle of Badr, it shows itself in the battle of Uhud, it shows itself when they are fulfilling their vow, it shows when it manifests when they are giving their iftar in the way of Allah, and so on and so forth. Because of this disposition and strong iman, Allah protected them from that day and gave them nadratan wa surura, happiness and freshness and joy. And we talked about how this freshness and joy is not something that we have here. You saw that. I don't know how many of you saw Game 7. What happened after Game 7? They were just all over the floor, some of them. They don't know what to do because of too much joy. God knows how much adrenaline is flowing in their veins that moment. Some are crying, some are laughing, some jumping up and down. The joy of the Yawm al-Qiyamah is nowhere close to even this type of joy. But it's something along these lines that you don't even know what to do. Allah gives them a freshness and joy, but they are taking it all in. On the Day of Judgment, you have the capacity to take it all in. Here, someone passes out, someone laughs, someone cries, someone just sits there and just looks and stares because they can't take it all in. But the Day of Judgment is different. This was all explained. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. Allah rewarded them because of their patience. Once again, not just one time that they were patient, but because of that patience that they always had, because of that iman again and again and again. If you want to be a person who does things for wajhullah and does things out of fear of the Day of Judgment, you have to have sabr, patience. So because of this patience also that is always with them in their deeds, Allah gave them jannatan wa harira, a garden and silk to wear. And of course it was explained once again, the silk, how it is. We'll get to the other verses. متكئين فيها على الأرائك, reclining on the couches. لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا. There is no sun or there is no heat, and there is no biting cold. And I explained how there probably there's two possibilities, that there is no sun or there is no heat. Shams means sun, but here is it saying that there's no sun in heaven or there is no heat? It was explained, and the reasons were presented that it's probably sun, not heat. Sun. And that's why the Quran is saying there's no sun. أَشْرَقَتِ الْأَرْضُ بِنُورِ رَبِّهَا. That day there is no need for a sun. Everything is bright and shining because of the nur of the Rabb, not the nur of the sun. وَدَانِيَةً عَلَيْهِمْ ظِلَالُهَا وَذُلِّلَتْ قُطُوفُهَا تَذْلِيلًا. I'm just rushing through this so that we can get to where we left off. The shadows, the shade of the trees are close to them, meaning that the branches are close to them. That's why the shade is encompassing them completely. وَذُلِّلَتْ قُطُوفُهَا تَذْلِيلًا. And the fruits are subdued for them. They are at their command. They are under their control. You just point, you don't even have to point, because I said, if you say come or you point, that burns maybe half a calorie or a calorie. You want to keep all the calories there, unlike here. So, you just will it. These are under your control, under your command. The fruits come. And you might even absorb it. You don't even have to chew, you just absorb it. It's so interesting. It's like these movies sometimes. وَيُطَافُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِآنِيَةٍ مِّن فِضَّةٍ وَأَكْوَابٍ كَانَتْ قَوَارِيرَ مِن فِضَّةٍ قَدَّرُوهَا تَقْدِيرًا. These verses are talking about the goblets and the vessels that are spinning and circling around these individuals, waiting for them to use them. And they are made out of silver, and how we had hadith that the silver of Jannah, there is nothing like it in this world. Other blessings of Jannah, the hadith says, you will have something resembling them here. And we had verses that talked about this. That when in the Jannah they get rewards, they get blessings, they're like, oh, this is something like what we had in the dunya. But there's one thing that there is nothing like it in the dunya, the silver of Jannah. That is like crystal that you see through it. Silver, you can't see through silver, but yet it is crystal and it is silver at the same time. We had a couple hadith in this regard. وَيُسْقَوْنَ فِيهَا قَدَّرُوهَا تَقْدِيرًا. And the measurement of these goblets is at their command. Whatever they want, the measurement, how much do you want to drink today? This much, okay, the goblet is going to be that much. Which is better, to have something half filled or something full? When it's full to the brim, it's just better, you know? So they measure it the way they want, it's full to the brim. وَيُسْقَوْنَ فِيهَا كَأْسًا كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا زَنْجَبِيلًا. If that's not enough, they're also drinking from something else that has it's seasoned by zanjabil and ginger. I explained that in the Jahiliyyah times, back in the Prophet's time, there were two types of drinks that were a specialty. One was the one that they sprinkled ginger in, another one was that they sprinkled camphor in. These are the best things the dunya had to offer back then. So Allah is using these. Not necessarily you have to have ginger. As a matter of fact, last night iftar we had ginger. I didn't take any because it's too much for me. So if someone says, oh, I don't like these things, brother, sister, whatever it is, it's going to be good. Don't worry about that part. Allah's power, Allah's wisdom dictates that He does something that we like. Don't worry about that part. Streams running with flowing Kit Kat. Whatever. وَيَطُوفُ عَلَيْهِمْ وِلْدَانٌ مُخَلَّدُونَ إِذَا رَأَيْتَهُمْ حَسِبْتَهُمْ لُؤْلُؤًا مَنْثُورًا. And then there are servants that are like scattered pearls. That's how beautiful they are. They are also circling around these individuals. When you see them, you think that they're scattered pearls. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ ثَمَّ رَأَيْتَ نَعِيمًا وَمُلْكًا كَبِيرًا. When you see this Jannah, when you take a step back and look at it from afar, you see a grand kingdom, and all you see is blessings. Remember, we talked about how sometimes you're on a mountain, you don't understand, you don't appreciate how great that mountain is unless you step back. and you get on like a drone or something, you go up, you see how great the mountain is. When you're on the mountain, you're looking at the details. The verses are telling us the details of this Jannah. Then they take us a step back. It says when you look from far away, you see some good stuff too. You appreciate its vastness, its greatness, its beauty as a kingdom. عَالِيَهُمْ ثِيَابَ سُنْدُسٍ خُضْرٌ وَإِسْتَبْرَقُ وَحُلُّوا أَسَاوِرَ مِنْ فِضَّةٍ وَسَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ شَرَابًا طَهُورًا. This is where we ended yesterday, where it says they are wearing silk, both thin silk and thicker silk, brocade. That's green. وَحُلُّوا أَسَاوِرَ مِنْ فِضَّةٍ. They have bracelets of silver. Once again, I talked about this yesterday or 2 days ago, that the silver there might be better than the gold there. The gold there is for normal ones, then the silver apparently is for those who are higher, because it's something that we didn't even have here. And in this verse it says they are given bracelets of silver. These abrar, these muqarrabeen, these ibadullah, they are wearing this material. Then in the end, once we're done with all of these blessings, all of the blessings are mentioned, we have the same pattern elsewhere too, where Allah gives us a list of blessings and then He ends with something a little bit lofty that we kind of understand and we kind of don't understand. Here it says, سَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ. Before this, if you wanted something, you would get it. Before this, servants were bringing it to you. Here it says Allah quenches them with something. Allah, their Lord, gives them something. It makes a big difference. We don't know what it's all about. That this is associated with Allah. Other verses of the Quran we also had, Ridwanun min Allah, Ridwanullah Akbar. Things like this, that the Ridwan and satisfaction of Allah, after Allah lists blessings and streams and chaste mates and all of these things, Allah ends it with Ridwanullah, satisfaction of Allah. In another verse, He says, the satisfaction of Allah is higher than all of these. We don't understand. We don't understand. How beautiful Allah is, we don't understand. We're not even supposed to talk about it. We can't talk about it. We want to understand. But Allah always tops it off, or not always, sometimes tops it off with this, and He doesn't elaborate too much. This is for those special individuals to go look into it and see what it's all about. It's something to be experienced here. For lovers to be experienced here, true lovers who are ibadullah. It says He's the one who is now giving them a drink and quenching them with a sharaban tahura, a purifying drink. A purifying drink. And we explained that this purification, what is meant by it, is that it's not a normal drink that you just drink and it's pure, there's no filth in it. No. Not only when you drink it is it pure, but it also does something to you. You grow as you drink. It destroys any form of ghafla that you have of the ultimate blessing that is Allah. The more ghafla, the more impurity. Allah has explained this. So this is a summary of how far we got, of the verses that we did. Now we have just one more part, one more verse. إِنَّ هَذَا كَانَ لَكُمْ جَزَاءً وَكَانَ سَعْيُكُمْ مَشْكُورًا. I have some things to explain here, but I'll keep it short. There's two possibilities. The verse means, they will be told, this is indeed your reward. After the Quran lists all of the blessings, it's said to these people, this is your reward and your endeavor has been well appreciated. كَانَ سَعْيُكُمْ مَشْكُورًا. Mashkur comes from shukr. Alright, 2 points here and then we'll end. We'll end and we'll go into a little bit about our second Imam, inshallah. One is, who is the one who says this to these individuals? Is it Allah who says it to them? Or is it the angels that tell these individuals, these abrar, that this is your reward? And your endeavors have been well appreciated. They're mashkur. We're thanking you for it. Some say it's Allah who says this to them. But there are some greats who say, no, on that day we will not see Allah and we will not hear Allah. And then the verses that imply that we'll see Him or hear Him, those they explain, they interpret those in another way that matches this understanding that Allah will not be seen ever the way we see here or the way we hear here. It's different. Personally, I can't choose one of these two. It's hard. Will they hear this from Allah? Will they hear this from the angels? We don't know. What is for sure is what Allama Tabatabai says though. What does he say? He says, I'll read the Arabic. وَيَا لَهَا مِنْ كَلِمَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ لَهُمْ بِهَا تَطِيبُ بِهَا نُفُوسُهُمْ. He says, and this is an al-mizan. This is an al-mizan, but he gets emotional here. Allama Tabatabai, you can tell he might be shedding a tear or two when he says this, out of longing for this. He says, what a beautiful and soothing line that is said to them. That through this line, when they hear it, their souls will be at rest and will be calm and reach tranquility when they hear this. When they hear this line. This itself is a blessing. Now if Allah is saying it, then all the better. Sometimes your beloved texts you. Sometimes he or she calls you and you hear their voice when they're telling you. This itself, now, sometimes it's another person which is imperfect. That same person, if you get married to them after 1 or 2 years, you're like, man, I don't even know how I liked it, you know? But sometimes it's a perfect individual. Here, he is longing for it. Just the fact that he is reaching acknowledgement, that's one point to think about. You see, the list of blessings are ending with some lofty things that we just hear and we'll be like, okay, whatever. But you have to keep it there, absorb it, think about it. If, like, for example, I don't know what example they give. I don't know, the president of a country, I don't know, the king of a kingdom. Sometimes just the fact that the king speaks to you yourself, you're just like, wow, man, I'm feeling good today. It's something to think about. That's one point. Another point, mashkura. Look at how kind Allah is. He's the one who created us. He's the one who gave us everything we have. But in the end, He's thanking us still. I mean, how good can you get? That's why you see, okay, then the Ahlul Bayt, that their kindness, where it's coming from then. Oh, it's a manifestation of Him. They are a reflection of Him, apparently. Since Allah is thanking me, you gave me everything. It's like the father that has raised his child from infancy all the way up, or the mother, they raise the child. He reaches a point where the father helps him out, he studies hard, all of that kind of stuff, gets good grades, and then he says, thank you, son. You're not supposed to thank me, you gave me everything, and now you're thanking me? It shows how much love and what a bond there is between these two, that this person cares for that person so much. What hurts him and what is not good for him hurts me. It makes me upset. And then this is where you start to understand why the Quran tells the Prophet again and again, don't hurt yourself trying to make these people believe. That you are لَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ. You are like self-destructing because you want these people to make it to Jannah, because you care about them so much. حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ. He is haris over you. Obsessive over the fact that He wants you to believe. That's where He's getting it from. إِنَّ سَعْيَكُمْ كَانَ مَشْكُورًا. This was the first part of this surah. The second part of this surah, they even argue that this second part was actually, even from the Shia school, they will tell you, it was probably revealed in Mecca. So these two parts of this surah are totally different parts. And as I said the first day when we started, we are doing this for the first part of the surah, because it has to do with our Ahlul Bayt. And these verses have lessons for us that we covered to the best of my ability. I'll end with this point. In Ruh al-Ma'ani, this is a tafsir of the Sunni school, of Al-Alusi, who is a Salafi. He is a Salafi. He has a nice point here. I don't have time to open it up. He says, when we look, he brings proof that these verses were revealed about the story that the Shia believes in. What's his proof? One of the things he says is this. He says, when you look at these verses, do you find any mention about Hurul Ain, the female Huris of Jannah? No. Whenever we go to other verses about Jannah, we find this, Hurul Ain and all of that, the maidens of Jannah. He says, here we don't find any mention of Hurul Ain. And then he says, I believe The reason is because one of those abrar was Fatima Zahra, salamullahi alayha. Out of respect for Fatima Zahra, Allah doesn't talk about Hurul Ain here in these verses. Beautiful. Let's make a transition. This concludes our tafsir of these verses of Surah Al-Insan. Now, let's talk a little bit about our master, because he also has to do with these verses. Al-Imam Al-Mujtaba Al-Hasan ibn Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The story of his birth is interesting. There's a few points that I would like to mention. I don't know how much we might have to not have announcements tonight, or do we have to have announcements tonight? Yes, the story goes like this of his birth. Just one part of it I'm going to talk about. Where we have this hadith in the Amali of Shaykh al-Tusi, and also we have the similar in Amali of Shaykh al-Saduq, which are two very reliable sources. That when Lady Fatima, she gave birth to our Imam, the second Imam, Imam Hassan, the Prophet ﷺ came and he said, Ya Asma, halummi ibni, give me my son, oh Asma. Now here there's a mistake that some historians make. They say Asma bint Umays is meant here, but Asma bint Umays was in Ethiopia, as history tells us. She wasn't here. And here the historians explain to us that this is Asma, another Asma, one of those wet nurses. Her name was Asma, and she was one of the famous ones during that time. The wet nurses of then, they were important people. They knew the etiquettes, they knew all these things, and they were wet nurses, and they knew how to give birth to these children in a good way, and so on, and so forth. So the Prophet is telling her to give me the baby. Give me my baby? No, Ibni, my son, because some of the other schools of thought, they believe that the Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, we cannot call them the sons of the Prophet. The Prophet here says, Halummi Ibni, give me my son. So she gives him to the Prophet wrapped in a yellow cloth. Apparently this was one of the adab, one of the etiquettes of back then. The Prophet, according to one of the accounts, says, didn't I tell you? Wrap him in white, not yellow. He takes this off. Okay, that's one. So the Prophet did adhan in his right ear and the iqamah in his left ear, and then he turns to Ali ibn Abi Talib, sallallahu alayhi. بِأَيِّ شَيْءٍ سَمَّيْتَ ابْنِي. What did you name my son? Again he says, my son. Subhanallah. The Imam, he says, مَا كُنْتِ أَسْبِقَكَ بِاسْمِهِ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. I'm not going to name your son before you. I'm waiting for you to come. فَقَالَ النَّبِي وَلَا أَنَا أَسْبِقُ بِاسْمِهِ رَبِّي. I'm not going to go and be ahead of my Lord. Let my Lord name him. We know this part of the story. Yes, brothers? That Jibreel comes down. If it wasn't in these good sources, I might have not read this. This is in good sources, alhamdulillah. فَقَالْ يَا مُحَمَّدْ الْعَلِيُّ الْأَعْلَى يُقْرِئُكَ السَّلَامِ. Allah sends salam to you. وَيَقُولُ عَلِيٌّ مِنْكَ بِمَنْزِلَةِ هَارُونَ مِنْ مُوسَى. Allah says that Imam Ali compared to you is like Harun compared to Prophet Musa. وَلَا نَبِيَّ بَعْدَكَ. There is no prophet after you. Of course, this hadith is a famous hadith, right? Hadith al-Manzila. This isn't what it's famous for. In the battle of Tabuk, if I remember correctly, that's when the Prophet says this. And maybe other places. It's less known, this part. This hadith is less known to belong to this story as well. Okay, so Allah says, he is like Harun for you, so give him the name of who? The son of Harun, give his name to the son of your Harun. What is that name? Shubbar, this hadith says. Name him Shubbar. The Prophet says, I speak Arabic, the Arabic language. He says, yes, call him Al-Hasan alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's about his birth. A couple interesting points there. Now, about his karam, his jood, we've heard lots of stories. I said this before, and then later on I noticed I made a little mistake. I said before that Imam Hassan gave all of his wealth 3 times in the way of Allah. No, they say he gave all of his wealth twice in the way of Allah. 3 times he split his wealth with Allah. What does that mean? That means they say he divided it into 2 parts. One part he gave away in sadaqah, and the other part he kept for himself. So 3 times he split it between his Lord. It shows that his intention was إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. Split it with his Lord, not with others. Of course, he's giving it to others. They are his wasila. They are the wasila. But he kept the other half for himself. When he would help people in a way that they wouldn't need to come back and ask for more help later. They would go and they would continue. He would give them a capital to work with, and they would have a normal life like everyone else. That's how Imam Hassan would help. As I said before, though, our imams had the money for this. They had the money for this as well, but they're not attached to it, unlike others who were very attached to the gold coins and silver coins that they had amassed. There's a lot of other stories. I want to skip some things here that I have. There are interesting stories about how he would sometimes, when he didn't have money, he would help the person in a way to make money. Yes? But let's skip all of that. Let's go to a few points that we have a misunderstanding of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Not us, but the Muslim Ummah in its entirety. And it owes to the Umayyad version of Islam and the Umayyad hadiths that are out there that we believe don't belong to the Prophet. The Prophet did not say them. And that has to do with different aspects of his life. But one aspect is Imam al-Hassan's courage and bravery. When you look at the hadiths from the other schools of thought, you find that Imam al-Hassan is introduced as weak, as very emotional. He cries very easily, like a girl, kind of sometimes. Something like that. We want to talk about this a little bit. I'm going to start with this hadith. Inna ibni hada sayyidun. They say the Prophet was sitting. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari. The Prophet was sitting, and Imam al-Hassan was playing around, going back and forth. Then the Prophet pointed and he says, this son of mine, inna ibni hada sayyidun. He's a sayyid. He's a very high, noble figure. Okay, that's good so far. وَلَعَلَّ اللَّهَ أَن يُصْلِحَ بَيْنَ فِئَتَيْنِ عَظِيمَتَيْنِ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And Allah in the future will probably or might bring peace between 2 great groups of the Muslimin. And of course this they interpret it as the battle of the whole schism between and strife between Muawiyah and Ali ibn Abi Talib. What's the story? The story goes like this. If you can just bear with me a little bit longer today. The story goes like this, that the way that their narrative is like this. I want you to pay attention, and then we'll talk about a few points. Number 1, the story that Imam Ali alayhi salam, when the Battle of Siffin was beginning, and Muawiyah had a huge army. Imam Ali has a huge army. What happens is Imam al-Hassan comes to his father, oh father, let's not fight. Oh father, lots of lives will be lost. Oh father this, oh father that. And maybe he even cried here. But Imam Ali says, no, I'm going to do what I have to do. Anyway, the story goes on. Tens of thousands lose their lives. I think more than 30-something thousand, I think 37,000 lose their lives in the Battle of Siffin. Over nothing. Of course, Imam Ali had to do this. He had to do this. Okay, what happens after this is that everyone is tired. The Qur'ans go on the spears. Even Imam Ali's own army, they say, listen, let's just go by what the Qur'an says. Well, you could have gone by what the Qur'an said at the beginning. Let's go by what the Qur'an says. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, yeah, I mean, look around, man, all these people have died. We shouldn't continue. Let's go by what the Qur'an says and see who has haqq, who has batil, and so on. We know the story of Hakamiyya and Tahkim, yes? And the arbitration. Point being that Imam Hassan, it's as if he tells his father, see, I told you all this blood is going to be shed. To the point that when the arbitration takes place and there's a peace treaty, ceasefire, Imam Ali, after that, he wants to begin the fight again. And yes, history says this, and we believe in it too. The reasons is not relevant right now. Why Imam Ali begins, he wants to restart the fight with Muawiyah, but the Khawarij get to Imam Ali sooner and they assassinate him. So now Imam al-Hassan is left with Muawiyah, right? So here, this is where the Umayyad version just goes all out, with a big smile on its face. And it says, yes, Hassan came with a huge army, like Jibal, like mountains, to fight Muawiyah, but then he said, enough bloodshed and peace. We want peace. And he gave the Khilafah to Muawiyah. This is that narrative. But let me tell you the Shia narrative about Imam Hassan's bravery and courage. Imam Hassan was the one, if it wasn't for him, Siffin wouldn't have happened to begin with. Why do I say this? I'll end with this story. It's beautiful, beautiful. Imam Ali, he says, "O Kufa, we want to begin the battle of Jamal and Siffin, both. We want to fight the ones who have broken their covenant and broken their allegiance and ahd and bay'ah." How many people come from Kufa? Not too many. Because Ali, he is not from the family of the Prophet. Not too much charisma and prestige. What does Ali ibn Abi Talib do? Battle of Jamal, Battle of Siffin. He sends Al-Hassan alayhi salam as the grandson of the Prophet and the son of Fatima to Zahra alayhi salatu wassalam. The people of Kufa now, they've never seen somebody like this. The historians tell us that this is Al-Hassan. We don't care that much about Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is what historians are saying. The analytical historians, the asatid. When Imam Ali asks, they don't come. When Imam al-Hassan goes, he is able to muster up 9,000 troops for the Battle of Jamal, not Siffin. Siffin was a lot more. The Battle of Jamal, 9,000 come because of Al-Hassan alayhi salam. If Al-Hassan didn't want to, if Al-Hassan was against all of these things, this is Jamal. Siffin, the same thing Imam Ali does. He sends Al-Hassan alayhi salam. This is because of Al-Hassan that Jamal took place, that Siffin took place. And then they tell us that he had an army the size of mountains, but he said, "I don't want bloodshed." Who says? The Shia school says they didn't have an army like that. The army was going to kill him. This army is made up of the Khawarij and others. They don't care about what Al-Hassan stands for. They care about just killing Muawiyah. That's why they're there. Yes, brothers and sisters, there's a lot that goes on. But then they tell you that he was the bridge between our Khilafah and Mulk, hierarchy and kings of Muawiyah onwards. They're happy that he was the bridge. No. He tried to destroy these bridges. But let me just end with this. It's nice also. They say, why didn't Imam Ali stop all the bid'ahs that were happening in his time? Let me just say this and I'll end. That did you see how Imam al-Hassan was able to, because of his lineage, gather the people for the battles of Jamal and Siffin? Imam Ali Nahj al-Balagha, he says, if my 2 feet are able to stand firm, all this commotion that's happening, all these civil wars aren't letting me. If I'm able to stand, I will get rid of bid'ahs. He tried once though. This Taraweeh, he sent again, he said, okay, the people like Imam al-Hassan. He sent Imam al-Hassan to get rid of this bid'ah. Those of us who say, why didn't Imam Ali take care of the bid'ahs at this time? He sent Al-Hassan again with the same lineage. He went and he says, oh people, this is a bid'ah. This is when the people said, wa sunnata umara. Oh my God, the sunnah of the second Khalifa is being trampled. So he was not able to do. He was able to bring people to fight. But the same Imam al-Hassan, because of these bid'ahs, they are so strong, he's not able to find a way out of this, and Imam Ali was not able to. So this is a little bit of an understanding of how fierce and ferocious Imam al-Hassan was. There's other stories as well, a lot more left, but we're going to end here because it's almost been that time. I thank the brothers and sisters for these nights and days, for all the hospitality, all the help. Those of you who are, on the inner circle helping out, you know who you are. I thank all of you for that as well. And inshallah, you keep me in your du'as. And if I've said anything or done anything wrong, which I probably have, I humbly ask you to forgive me and keep me in your du'as. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad.